Hey guys, Mark Farashi with Protect Dog Training. I'm my newest convert, Loki. Baby Loki is what we're calling him, because I've got another friend of mine who's got a dog with the name of Loki, and I've got one friend for training right now. I'm going to see if I can contain him enough that I can have him on camera, but he's already spotted this little table of all my toys and things that I set here to kind of go over some of this stuff. I want to start doing a little video and use him, Loki, as a primer and an introduction to what I call puppy development. A lot of people will call it socialization. I think it's a word that's used too much, and I want to try to get you guys to start changing the way you think of things and developing your dog, okay? So generally, in general, the dog comes to you at about 8 weeks of age when it leaves the litter, and it comes home to your home, and you've got a lot of things that you need to do. First thing you need to do is you need to be aware of diseases. I'm going to skim through this, and we're going to do a series because we're going to follow Loki here with his developments, the idea here. So we're going to start out with Loki, and what did I do with Loki when he came home, and what do I do to develop a puppy, okay? And when I say that, I've got an objective in mind. The dogs that I'm raising, I want to go out and be friendly and fine and be protection dogs, executive protection. I take about 2.5 years to develop that dog. And depending, all my animals are for sale, so I'll sell anything if the price is right. But in a big sense, I want to develop that dog to a finished product and produce a finished product in the end. And we were doing a lot of that with Rocky, if you remember him. He was a Dutch Shepherd as well. And I've got his father in the back. That was Arrow, and Arrow is Rocky's father. And I sold Rocky to a trainer, and the reason I did that is because the guy was a friend of mine, and I knew I could get this puppy in trade, as far as not straight across, but I mean I got him put in on the deal, so he was kind of the cherry on the top. And it wasn't because Rocky was a bad dog or a good dog. It was just mainly because this gentleman is out there training, and he wanted a good dog, and I figured I always have other dogs coming, and I can always produce more products. So I grabbed him, and I've got my mind on puppy development right now. So in general, I want to give you guys two things. Right now we've got the internet, so all this information is on the internet everywhere you can think of, okay? So you can do your own research and your own development if you're going to get a puppy. The first two things you want to start studying is critical development periods. There's a lot of literature on it. I was just looking it up now. And these are the subjects that I come over again and again in the dog training field, and I rehash it constantly. I never think that I know it all. I don't stop my mind from getting into the subjects. I may have read it 1,000 times, and I'll go back and read it again when I want to get my brain into what I'm getting into. So right now we're doing that study. And I was up at 4:30 this morning reading all kinds of things on puppy development, getting ready to start out this series. We're going to do a series. We're going to follow Loki as far as we can. Some of you guys that follow me realize that I get a little bit busy and I get all kinds of things, and I may have a dog like Turk who's in the back that I started to do some scent work with, and I start to get into other things, and I'll come back to it, and you'll get to see Turk again. He's still with me. Rocky has gotten sold, so he's gone, but at the same time you may see him show up because I may be out with a friend of mine. Ow, ow, ow. Good boy. And if you notice what I just did right there, I made a big old squeal. He's chewing on me. All right, so I made a big squeal. Was that going to get him to stop? Not really. The best way to stop this chewing problem with puppies, ow, ow, is to redirect. I've got my toys. I'm going to redirect. I'm going to give them something else to do. So I'm going to take that energy. I'm going to put it into something else. So back to our subject of a little bit of research and development, a little bit of studying that you want to do. You want to do a studying on critical development periods in puppies. Get a general overview of that and become familiar of the fact that there are things that are called critical development periods. The other one that you want to learn about is what's called fear periods. Dogs have very distinct time periods in their life that they go through, as from puppies to about 6-8 months of age, maybe even a year sometimes, where they go through these critical fear periods in their life. And those fear periods where they're very shy and insecure, you need to be aware of it so that you handle those. And we'll come to those as we start to experience some of this with him, because that'll put my mind on it, and I'll go over that subject with you. Okay, so those two subjects, critical development period and fear periods in puppies, is what you want to study as a new owner of a puppy, and become familiar and aware of that. Okay. The other thing that you hear a lot about is what's called socialization. And these words a lot of times get overused, but my big thing that I want to try to get across to you guys is that you folks need to start thinking differently of how you do it. When I say the word socialization, a lot of times people will think that that means that you should go out and get your dog into dog parks and learn to be friendly with other dogs. In my world, with working dogs and with development of dogs in general, I do this with pet quality dogs, doesn't matter. I don't use a doggy park. I don't expect my dog to go out and be social with other dogs. The reason for that is because I consider a doggy park like Russian roulette. Okay, there's diseases in doggy parks. There's all kinds of things because not everybody does the same thing with their dogs. They may not inoculate properly. They may have a dog that might be sick with parvo or something else. So that to me is like a petri dish of diseases. That's one reason I don't go to the doggy park. But the biggest reason that I don't go to doggy parks is because of what I call Russian roulette. It only takes one time for another dog that's a little bit precocious or a little bit of a bully to be in that doggy park, to come at your dog and to ruin your dog for life, because anything that happens at these critical development periods to this young dog is going to affect him, okay, good or bad. My job is to give him as many positive things as I possibly can and always be nurturing him towards strength of development, just like you would do a child, okay? So a lot of my development is all based on making this dog the most mentally and physically strong as I possibly can, because I know that he's going to want to have to go out to the law enforcement or a working dog capacity. The gentleman that I sold the excuse me, Rocky to is going to be getting into PSA. And so PSA is a growing sport. PSA is a dog sport that's protection orientated. It's one of the first American origin, in other words, originated here in America towards protection dog sports. Most of the protection dog sports come from Europe. Schutzen, which is orientated towards the German Shepherd in a general sense, but there's other dogs that play in that as well. But Schutzen's been around for a long time. You've got ring sport, you've got PSA, you've got all kinds of these different bite dog sports, okay? So that's kind of what I developed for, but I don't get into sports so much. I want a dog that's going to turn out to be real. And what does that mean? That means a dog that I can take anywhere with me. He's friendly and fine, very stable because of how I've developed that animal. And then when I end up selling him to a customer, I want to customize that dog for the customer's needs generally in protecting the home and family. Okay, so, and then also my dogs a lot of times qualify for police work. I've got a dog that's up in the Bay Area right now that I developed and trained, ended up selling him at about 1.5 years of age, and he's now in the Bay Area as a police dog. So how you develop these dogs is important to me, and I want to try to pass on some of the knowledge that I've got doing this for 30-40 years of my life and being saturated to the degree that I am. Okay, so the biggest thing that you want to understand when the dog's this young is that we need to develop him in such a way that he never gets any traumatic things happen to him and any negatives if we can possibly handle it. And so your tool basically is going to be environment. Okay, so environment, I'm going to let Loki take off and play because he's just too much energy, just like a child. There's no way he's going to sit here with me in my lap trying to talk to you folks. So we'll let him go do his own thing. So in a general sense, that's the goal. That's what you want. Now, what is your main tool? Your main tool is going to be all kinds of things that you're going to use, but environment is my biggest tool. And me, I always think of my environment as something that I need to be able to be conscientious and aware of. How do I control it so I never have any traumatic things happen to this dog? Okay, and that comes with experience. It comes with doing this for a long time, but I want you guys to change the way you think. One, socialization is a word that's overused, and there's a lot of these buzzwords that are used so much that people have a certain conception of them because you're not knowledgeable, and so, or not, maybe you are, maybe you, but whatever. Well, bottom line is that you as a person have a preconceived notion when you hear the word socialization. Does it mean child development to you? Does it mean that you think you need to have your child be around other dogs and to be social and greeting people all the time? What does that word all of a sudden get your brain to click and have you thinking? And that's the way you approach what you're trying to do with your animal. So again, I want to try to get over this series. I want to try to get you guys to start viewing it a little bit different. So we're going to change the word. We're going to change it to what I use, which is environmental saturation. And what does that mean? Does that mean I just take this young puppy and go out to the busiest place I possibly can and saturate him with environment? No. Okay, what it means is I start here in my neutral lab, there's nothing going on. I basically probe the dog and I find out where he's at and what his nature is, and then where he is at in his developmental period, meaning his age. And where is he at developmental based on his age, based on his temperament, based on his outlook of the world, because every dog is going to perceive it differently. Some dogs are going to be afraid of it. Maybe they're going through a fear period. We mentioned that earlier. Look that up. Okay, so in a general sense, I will probe on that and I will wait for the dog to get old enough where I feel it's safe to start taking him out in public. A lot of people, again, preconceived notions because you don't have a knowledge of this. They think that they want to keep the dog locked up until he's totally inoculated and totally safe from the environment. I don't do things that way. I give him his shots. When he's 8 weeks of age, he comes to me, he's going to get another couple shots, but reality is that I don't want to rob him of environment. But if I'm safe and I have common sense and awareness of my environment and where this danger is at, I'm going to make sure I don't put him in those dangerous areas. I'm not going to go out to the park where a bunch of other dogs are going out and soiling themselves all the time, and there's a lot of dookie on the ground, because parvo comes from that and other diseases. All right, so I'm aware of that. I want to keep him away from a heavy population of other dogs. Okay, so I like to go to Home Depot, because in Home Depot they do the floors every night and they scrub and they keep it clean, and dogs in general aren't going in there to defecate. Do they go in there and go to the bathroom now and then? Sure. Do they go into Pet City or Petco and PetSmart, go into some of these large chain stores? I do. I go to Tractor Supply, I go to PetSmart, Petco. I go to all different types of places that I know that are dog friendly. So they are relatively safe. When I go to Home Depot, as an example, is another one I use a lot for environmental. When I go to Home Depot, I don't put my puppy down by the little shrubs that they have on the corner where other people might let their dog out and go to defecate or do his thing before they go into the store. Okay, so I'm very aware of it. When I go to a veterinarian, I stay out in the car and I wait for the vet to call me, and I go right into that table and I put him on the table. Why do I do that? Because that's where sick dogs go. I don't go into the waiting room and sit around with a bunch of other dogs and have a place where I could possibly catch something and get something. What I do with a young puppy like this is I sit out in my car and I wait for the vet to call me, and I tell him ahead of time what my concerns are, that I want to be able to walk in with this puppy in my arms, put him on his clean table that he's already disinfected and it's spotless, have him do his checkup and do what he needs to do with the dog, and then I walk him and get him the heck out of there. I don't want him staying a vet. Okay, because that's where sick dogs go. So in other words, common sense and awareness and what your dog can get and what he can be a negative to him or be a danger to him, I'm very aware of. Okay, but I don't stop taking my dog out, and I don't sit here and keep him in this little bubble and not expose him to environment. Okay, so I'll explain to some of the things I've already done with Loki, and I've only had him a week or so. All right, the first thing I did within a couple days is I stuck him in the back of my car in a crate, and I took off and went and got a tank of gas, because I needed to get gas anywhere from my vehicle. So I took Loki with me so he could experience a ride. Okay, and he was in the back of the truck, which means he's relatively safe because he's not on the ground. All right, and then when I got to the store after doing that car ride, he wasn't happy about it. He's never been in a car ride, and it was just we want to do short and sweet little things with a dog to make sure we get him acclimated to driving in the car, going in the car. I don't take a long trip and go on a windy roads and get the dog sick, because now after a while the dog will end up becoming psychologically have a negative in his head, and he'll get even sick before he even hits the car. My job is to barely break him in slowly but surely, so that it becomes a very positive thing and he never gets car sick. That's the goal. So I'll make sure I don't feed him before I go. Little tricks that I do, basically, again, awareness and cognizant of what the dog might have to go through. So I went to the gas station. I flipped my bed down when I got there. I had my gas already started. I pulled Loki out and I played with him on the back of the bed. I took a little sack, a little toy. See, I've got a sack out here right now. It's a rolled up sack. This is one of his toys. And I went out and I started playing with him in the back of the truck. A lot of high praise. I got done with my gas. I put him in the back of the crate again, bottled it all up, took off and came back for my short and sweet ride back home. When I got him out at home, where we're now safe, I took him out of the back of the car, I pulled the sack out, and I made a lot of high fun and play, let him play for about a minute or so, and then I put him in his kennel, in his little holding pen. So I made that experience as positive as I possibly could for him. We're going to do that today. We're going to take off and go do a little drive. We're going to come back and I'll do the same thing, keeping it as positive as possible. At his age, I really don't want to put him on the ground. I really don't want to have him be susceptible to any diseases right now, so I'm not putting him on the ground. Within a few weeks, a month or so after I'm sure that these shots have taken hold and he's safe and he's old enough to be able to do it, I will start taking him and going to Home Depot and a lot of other environmental, but I'll take it very slow and methodical in building that puppy using environmental, okay? So I want you to change that word, folks, from socialization to environmental saturation, okay? And how you saturate that dog and how much you do all at once is important. You don't do it all at once, or you'll end up with what happened with Demas. Remember, Demas got kicked back from the customer because they were probably not aware of this and they didn't have the education. That's one of the reasons I do these videos, so you guys get to learn and grow. And he came back being all wound up and totally ADHD. Okay, so a high drive Malinois dog that if handled properly wouldn't ever had that happen to him. Okay, so bottom line, we need to educate the public on how they do this and do it the right way, and you won't have these problems. So keep an eye on this. We're going to be doing Puppy Development 101. We're going to go through some of the basic things that I do with my puppy. And right now, all I'm doing is little car rides and a lot of this play, fun toy stuff that I'm doing with him, learning to throw, throwing a little tennis ball so I see what his prey drive is like. So does he bring it back? Is he possessive? Does he keep that toy and want to go off on his own? I want to see all these things. All right. Now the other thing, and I'm probing all the time when I'm doing this, so that when I go out in public and start really doing the environmental saturation, that I'm aware of what his sensitivities are. Okay, and where his head's at as an individual, depending on his breed, depending on his temperament, all kinds of things, factors that go into it, depending on how much work I put into it. Because if I've done all the kinds of work, maybe he's just blasé. What do we want to end up with in the end is what we call bomb-proof. I want to have a dog that can just have anything put on him, slick floors, noises, all kinds of things. So that dog is so sure of himself that that confidence is going to travel over into the growth and the maturity of him becoming a protection dog and having a lot of machismo to do his job. Confidence is key. And you'll hear me saying again and again as we do this, where's the dog's head at in the work? I'm always looking for that. It's not just teaching the dog heel, sit down, stay. That's not training to me. What's training to me is developing that little dog's maturity and where his head's at in the work. The behaviors of heel, sit down, stay, these behaviors are only an offshoot. The most important thing is where's the dog's head out in the work. And you'll hear me say that again and again when I'm working with my customers or I'm working with the dog. That's what I'm paying attention is, where is his head at in the work? So we're going to be going over this and I want you guys to tune in for that. I hope you do. And if you do and you do the YouTube, please do me a favor, subscribe to the channel so I can get more people in and get some more validity on what's going on with my, my films and stuff. I really appreciate it. Go ahead and comment. If you have questions, fire away. I'm here to help. That's what it's all about. That's why I do what I do. I love to teach. I love to be able to pass on my knowledge. I've been doing it for so many years. It's a lot of fun for me. I don't do this because I don't enjoy it. So I thank you very much for listening to this and we'll talk to you soon. Puppy Development 101. Tell your friends. Bye-bye.